Let me tell you something in life, in war, and in power. There is no mercy for weakness. When you think you are the strongest, when you believe no one can touch you, that is the moment life smashes you down. America thought it was untouchable, the big giant of the world, but India showed the world that even the giant can be brought to its knees. This was not just a strike, it was a humiliation, a shockwave that changed the balance of power forever. And today, I will show you exactly how it happened, and why it matters to you. You see, the first mistake that America made was believing in its own illusion of invincibility. That's the danger of being at the top too long. When you are the biggest, when you are the strongest, you start thinking no one can ever touch you. You start to relax, you stop paying attention, you underestimate the hunger of the challenger, and in that exact moment, the foundation begins to crack. America looked at itself like the unbeatable champion, the giant with muscles too big to fall. But let me tell you, every giant has a weak point. Every champion can be beaten, and India proved that with one strike. It's like in bodybuilding. When I was competing, there were guys who thought size alone would guarantee victory. They thought just because they were massive, no one could challenge them. But size without discipline, without strategy, without respect for your opponent, it becomes a weakness. They would walk on stage overconfident, and I would destroy them with precision, with conditioning, with focus. That's what happened here. America had the size, the global dominance, the reputation, but India had the focus. America was showing off, India was training in silence. And when the moment came, that silence roared louder than any speech or threat ever could. The illusion of invincibility is dangerous because it blinds you. When you believe no one can hurt you, you stop evolving. You stop adapting, and that's exactly why humiliation comes. Because someone out there is hungry, someone out there is watching, someone out there is working day and night to take their shot. India was that someone. While America was flexing for the world, India was sharpening the blade. While America believed no one could stand against it, India prepared a strike so sharp, so unexpected. It cut through the armor like it wasn't even there. Now, let me tell you this, humiliation doesn't come from losing. No, losing is part of life. Humiliation comes when you believe you can't lose, and then you do. That's why this hit America so hard. It wasn't just a military move, it was a psychological earthquake. The whole world saw it. The strongest power on earth, the one that claimed untouchable status, brought down to its knees. That's not just defeat, that's humiliation. And humiliation is a scar that never fully heals. Think about your own life. How many times have you thought you were too good to fail? Maybe in business, maybe in relationships, maybe in personal goals. And then, out of nowhere, reality strikes and you are humbled. That moment is painful, but it's also powerful. Because humiliation is a teacher. It teaches you that no matter how strong you think you are, there is always someone hungrier, someone sharper, someone waiting for the right moment. That's why you must never ever get comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Invincibility is a lie. The moment you start believing it, you are already on the way down. America forgot that. India reminded them. This wasn't just a strike. It was a wake-up call, a message to the world: strength is not permanent, dominance is not guaranteed, and arrogance is the beginning of downfall. India showed that the true power lies not in how big you are, but in how ready you are, how disciplined you are, and how fearless you are when the opportunity comes. This moment will be remembered because it flipped the script. The giant was exposed. The world saw that the unbeatable could be beaten, that the invincible could be touched. And that is the most humiliating truth for anyone who thinks they are above challenge. India didn't just prove its strength, it destroyed the myth of American invulnerability. And once that myth is gone, everything changes. So remember this lesson. Never believe you are too big to fall. Never think you are too strong to be challenged. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, stay hungry, because the moment you stop respecting the possibility of defeat, you are already walking toward it. And when the strike comes, it will not just beat you. It will humiliate you. Discipline and strategy, that is where the real power lies. Muscles, weapons, money, status, none of these matter if you don't know how to use them with precision. America had the size, it had the reach, it had the technology, but when it came time to prove strength, all of that didn't matter because the execution was sloppy. India, on the other hand, understood the art of discipline. Discipline is not glamorous, it's not about showing off. It's about repetition, about patience, about doing the work every single day even when no one is watching. That's what gives you the edge when the lights come on. When I trained for competition, every single rep mattered. I couldn't just walk into the gym, lift something heavy, and say, I'm ready. No, I had to think about form, timing, and balance. That discipline is what allowed me to step on stage and look unbeatable. India followed that same principle. Every movement, every decision, every calculation was precise. They didn't rush. They didn't act out of ego. They built their strike like a bodybuilder, chiseling away every detail until perfection. And when it was time, the execution was flawless. That is the difference between strength and power. Strength without strategy is wasted energy. Strategy fueled by discipline is unstoppable. America underestimated that. They thought being the loudest and biggest meant being the strongest, but the world doesn't work like that. The lion doesn't roar all day. It saves its energy for the hunt. India acted like the lion, patient. Calculated, focused, every part of the plan was built on discipline, and when the strike came, it wasn't wild, it wasn't chaotic, it was sharp, it was exact. That is why it humiliated America so deeply. They were beaten not by chance, but by discipline and strategy executed to perfection. You see, discipline is about controlling yourself when the world wants to distract you. America was distracted by pride, by politics, by image. India ignored the noise and stayed locked in on the mission, and that is a lesson for all of us. How many times in life do people fail, not because they didn't have talent, but because they lacked discipline? They started strong, but they couldn't stay consistent. They wanted results overnight instead of putting in the long hours. That's why discipline is rare. Everyone wants glory, but few are willing to do the boring, repetitive work it takes to achieve it. Strategy is the second half of the equation. Discipline gives you the strength, but strategy tells you when and how to use it. Without strategy, discipline becomes just routine. But with strategy, discipline becomes a weapon. India didn't just train, they studied. They learned the weaknesses, they found the openings, they identified exactly where to strike so that one move would create the maximum impact. That is intelligence, that is patience, that is power. Imagine in your own life, if you combine discipline with strategy, what could you accomplish? If you stopped wasting energy on things that don't matter, if you channeled your focus into one clear goal, if you had the patience to prepare while others laughed at you or ignored you, you would be unstoppable. That is the formula. That is how India turned what looked like an impossible challenge into a victory that shocked the world. Discipline and strategy don't just win battles, they win respect. They don't just crush the opponent physically, they crush the opponent mentally. Because when your enemy sees that you were patient, prepared, and precise, they realize it wasn't luck, it was superiority. That humiliation cuts deeper because they know they were beaten by someone smarter, someone more disciplined, someone who refused to be sloppy. This is why the strike was so powerful. It was not just an attack. It was a message. It said, we are disciplined, we are strategic, and we cannot be underestimated. And the world heard it. America, the one who always thought discipline belonged to them, was exposed. The illusion of size and dominance collapsed against the reality of strategy and control. So, if you take anything from this, take this truth. Never rely on size alone. Never rely on power alone. Build discipline, build strategy, build the patience to prepare when no one is looking, so that when the world is watching, you can deliver perfection. That is how you dominate. That is how you humiliate the one who thought they could never be touched. Silence has a power that most people underestimate. Everybody wants to be loud. Everybody wants to show off. Everybody wants the world to know what they are planning before they even take the first step. But the truth is, strength doesn't live in noise. Strength lives in patience, in quiet preparation, in the discipline to hold back until the exact right moment. America was busy making noise, telling the world how untouchable they were, boasting about their power, reminding everyone of their dominance. But while they were talking, India was silent, and that silence was not weakness. It was strength, it was focus, it was preparation. When you are silent, you become dangerous. People don't know what you are thinking. They don't know when you will move. They don't know what you are capable of. That uncertainty is terrifying. It keeps the opponent guessing. But when you are loud, when you show every move before you make it, you give away your advantage. That's what America did. They thought their noise would intimidate. Instead, it exposed them. India didn't respond with words. India responded with silence. And when the strike came, the silence exploded into action that the world could not ignore. I have seen this principle everywhere in life. In training, the man who talks the most in the gym is usually the weakest when it matters. He spends more time telling stories than lifting weights, but the quiet one, the one who doesn't brag, who just puts in the work day after day, that's the man you should fear. Because when the day of competition comes, he's ready, and he lets his performance speak. That's exactly what India did. While America was flexing its muscles for the cameras, India was training in silence, and when the lights came on, there was no need for words. The action itself was louder than any speech. Silence also shows control. It takes discipline not to react, not to fall into the trap of ego, not to waste energy on proving yourself before it's necessary. America wanted to provoke, to pressure, to dominate through words and posturing. India showed control by refusing to play that game. And control is the ultimate strength, because if you can control yourself, if you can control your emotions, then you can control the outcome. That is why the strike was so effective. It came from a place of restraint, of patience, of absolute focus. The humiliation America felt was not just from the strike itself, but from the silence before it. They didn't see it coming because they thought silence meant submission. They thought quiet meant fear, but silence was the trap, silence was the buildup, silence was the calm before the storm. And when the storm hit, it shattered their pride. That is why silence is powerful. It turns into shock when action finally arrives. Think about your own life. How often do people waste energy trying to prove themselves with words? They brag about what they will do. They boast about their plans. They make promises they can't keep. And in the end, they fall short because they spent their strength on noise instead of action. The truly powerful person doesn't need to announce. They prepare, they stay quiet, they stay disciplined, and when the moment comes, they deliver results that make all the noise unnecessary. That is how real dominance is built. India didn't humiliate America by shouting louder. They humiliated them by staying silent, by refusing to play the same game, and by striking only when the time was right. That is the kind of strength the world remembers. It teaches us all a lesson: don't mistake quiet for weakness, and don't assume the loudest voice is the strongest. True power is often the one you don't hear until it's too late.